Since I did a garden planning video in March, I thought I'd do a little tour to let you know what came of these plans. By the by, if there's any odd cuts in the footage, I had to cut out my neighbors' houses or other identifiable landmarks. At one point I had the street sign where I live fully in frame, which... great work, Self. Great work. Alright, let's get going. Here's the fever view, which I take for migraines. Don't take fever view if you're pregnant or nursing, and do your research before sticking stuff in your mouth just because someone on the internet said to. Fever view tastes disgusting, but it's helped me with my migraines. Here are 2 big lavenders, which should bloom in a month or so. Over here a bed that's been taken over by ground elder, but now I get to eat fresh greens every day for free, which I definitely am not mad at. On the other side are some berry bushes, blackberries, raspberries and blackcurrants. They are in pots for now, so I can try them out in a few different locations before I commit and plant them. And although they have been in the garden for about a month or so, all 3 have flowered and set a few fruits, so that's really promising. There's some Solomon's seal that's been vandalized by slugs. More lavender, some sedums, and there in the corner the barrels to collect rainwater. The corner is a bit dark and overgrown, but frankly, I kind of love that. It's got ferns and ivy and dog roses, and I love the almost enchanted wildness. Moving along, we happen upon a clematis growing in the rosebush. Is it clematis or clematis? I've heard both, but I'm gonna go with clematis. The rose is a little darker pink, and when they bloom together, it's so beautiful. And a peony that's about 2 weeks from blooming. Along the fence I have a few bushes to shield the garden from nosy neighbors. And a big yellow rose. And we have a flower already. The scent on this one is amazing. Judging from the buds, it's going to be an incredible year for roses. Under the rosebush we have the last of the allium hanging on to flower. The patch of purple allium is way past flower, but I'll leave them, hoping they'll spread their seed around so I'll have even more next year. It's not the prettiest right now, but I think the roses distract the eye. There's phlox that blooms in late summer, some grasses and euphorbia, and this very fancy, I think it's allium as well, but I might be wrong, some pretty bulb. On the bed to the left, there's a star magnolia, which has very pretty flowers in early spring, but is a little boring the rest of the year. Here's more of these fancy ones. I'm so in love with them, but they were planted before I moved into this garden, so I don't really know what they are. Then we have a bunch of euphorbia and a random... well, some might call them weeds, but I prefer to call them bonus plants. Oh, and these very pretty blush colored flowers. The leaves look very similar to Aquilita, but obviously the flowers are quite different. I don't know, they might be related. If someone has any ideas, please let me know. here's a whole host of yellow bonus flowers, which look just lovely. It's also a very dry, shady spot where previously nothing wanted to grow, so I'm quite delighted that they moved in. The tree trunk is of the damson tree. Last year a late frost took out the entire damson harvest, but it looks like we've got some fruit this year. Fingers crossed. There's the compost bin and next to it the nettle patch, which is thriving. Looks like quite a bit of seed is developing. I collect the seeds in autumn, dry them and have a sprinkle of them over breakfast oatmeal every day. They contain vitamins and minerals and are just supposed to be good for you. But be careful, don't use nettle if you have kidney disease, and I believe nettles can interfere with blood pressure medication. As I said earlier, don't just take my word for it, do your research. Over here are 2 column apple trees. These grow straight up and are pretty narrow, hence column, because they're tall and narrow like a column. I love column trees because they don't use up much space and you can have several varieties of fruit tree in a space you'd need usually for just one full-size tree. The amount of fruit they produce is also not as much as a tree, but it's a nice amount for one person. I usually get around a dozen apples per tree, which is a lovely amount and not overwhelming. Next up, a dog rose tangled up in a pine. I keep winding and tucking the dog rose shoots into the pine to encourage side shoots, which will produce flowers and later rose hips, which is what I'm after. In the pot I have a fig, which was all but overwhelmed by a dandelion. I'll pull that out as soon as I'm done filming. The fig is also in a pot to try out the spot before I commit to planting it. On my right is a rhododendron in the last throes of flower, a hosta, mugwort and some raspberries. The raspberries weren't planted, but just started growing 2 years ago. I assume it was a present from the birds. The white stuff is wool I hung up there for the birds to use for padding for their nests. Here's an amelanchier, also producing lots of berries. The birds also really love these berries, so any berries I can reach are for people to use, everything above that is for the birds. Back on my left, a whole battery of evening primroses. A garden with a lot of wild flowers is exciting because you never quite know what you'll get. Last year I've had Queen Anne's lace all over the place, but this year hardly any. This year the evening primrose has stopped by for a visit. Here's the St. John's wort getting ready to bloom. Oh, and the geraniums, look at those beautiful faces. There's a white rose, it's a Rosa rugosa alba, much beloved by bees. And 3 more column trees, a cherry tree and 2 pears. As I said, I am a big fan of column trees. These are looking pretty thin. They've only joined us last year, so I wasn't expecting much of them this year. As long as they get established, I'm very happy. On the wall is my big wreath, which I've been adding to for 2 years now. A absolutely massive dandelion and my rhubarb. I've divided one rhubarb into 5 last autumn, so they too are trying to get established. The woodruff patch is expanding into the rhubarb bed. I'll have to do something about that soon. In the back there is another rhododendron, which has decided not to flower this year. Oh well. Oh look, there's a foxglove! I'm so excited. I'll try to take seeds for next year. More evening primroses. And over here an elder, which is looking really good this year because we've had so much rain this spring. Usually it struggles quite a bit because this whole corner is pretty shady and dry because of this big fella. In the back here, I'm currently restacking the wall to the left, which was leaning over pretty precariously. It's quite a few slabs to lift around, so I spread the project out over a few days, or, possibly weeks. The little hill is mostly branches I left here to rot, and a few hedgehogs have moved in here, so that's nice. Here this white shrub looks so nice, smells amazing, and in a week or 2 the roses behind it will start blooming, which looks so pretty together. Let's go back the other way along the house. Here we have a few thymes that just started flowering. And some hellebores, a woodstack that insects really love. And an iris, which is just past its prime. I think I missed it by literally a day. Also there's my fennel, and I think the large leaves are a hollyhock? Not sure though. I love this fennel so much. Oh, an aquilita! And I'm not certain, but I think the garlic I planted 3 years ago has developed a flower. I'll update you once I know more. On my right are nasturtium, more nasturtium, beans and peas. There's also a couple of cranberries in there, but I somehow cannot figure out what they want. I read up on cranberries, I have tried to give them everything they want, but they're just not really doing well. Here we have a little hops, strawberries, and 2 of what look suspiciously like sunflowers. Usually the slugs eat all the sunflowers, so I dare not even hope I'll actually see them flower, so let's just move on. Over here is a narrow leaf plantain, which is one of my favorite plants. The extract helps with wound healing, it's edible, the flowers are edible and taste a little of mushrooms. Just a fantastic plant all around. Next to it, another berry bush, which looks like it might give us a rich harvest. There is a table. Trust me, under all the sedum, sempervivum and ivy, there is a table. Next to it is the bird bath, which is in desperate need of cleaning. In the 2 pots, in the back is woad, a dye plant from the Middle Ages, which has gone out of use since indigo arrived in Europe. And in the front is flax, the variety that is used for making linen. Basically, I'm growing a blue dress right here. The other group of pots, technically 2 of them should be growing dahlias, but it looks like the bulbs didn't make it through the winter. The 3rd one holds agapanthus, which are still considering whether it wants to grow or not. And we're back with blackberries. Oh, wait. This little patch here is probably my favorite spot in the garden. It's just a patch of rocks, but some really interesting things have decided to grow here. The chives are flowering, there's sempervivum, dandelions, narrowleaf plantain, strawberries, St. John's wort, Roman chamomile. I fought for years to keep the patch clear, but since I just let it go, it's become so pretty and useful. On the wall is creeping Virginia, which, when it gets too much, I pull down and use it for wreaths. And here is my plant hospital. Pots of things that are struggling or that are propagated and need to establish. Oh, and the lemongrass is in the garden for a summer vacation. Oh boy, okay, I am scanning around for a good spot to focus on to end the video. That's just a heap of sticks, not there. Oh, this fern is nice. So, thank you so much for watching. I think I'll do another tour in 4 to 6 weeks to see how things have developed. If that sounds interesting to you, you could subscribe. And if you have any ideas or tips on my garden, please leave them in the comments below. I'm always eager to learn. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a lovely week.